The other day someone mentioned a book called Being No One, Going Nowhere by a Theravadan nun in the United States named Ayakema. So I'm starting to listen to it on Audible. But I was thinking about the name, the title of the book, Being No One, Going Nowhere. And how now I really like that teaching, but I didn't like it quite so much when I first heard it. I remember hearing a teacher speak about it early in my practice and thinking, I know I should really like this teaching, being no one going nowhere, but I had this little niggling annoyance like, it's fine for you to say, you're a really well-known teacher, you're a somebody going all sorts of places, like leading retreats and things, so easy for you to say, being no one, going nowhere. So I thought about how come I have this little feeling of slight irritation with this teaching. And I think this is one of the things that doing Zazen, what it does for us is it gives us this chance to really notice our thinking, notice our emotions, and then decide, can I do something wholesome with what I'm aware of? So myself being aware that I felt slightly sort of jealous or irritated at somebody saying, being no one, going nowhere. Saying something like that helped me reflect that I am underutilizing myself. I'm not, at that time, I wasn't really fully happy with who I was. So I felt a little annoyed hearing someone tell me to be nobody, because I already felt, in a conventional way, already a bit like a nobody in the sort of more negative implication of that term. And so that, along with other factors, resulted in my going back to university and changing career paths and taking up the koan curriculum in a really vigorous way. I'd already sort of started, but really taking up my training very seriously, working every week with a teacher and meditating every day. And then I started to feel like, just within myself in a healthier kind of way, I'm kind of feeling a bit like I'm a somebody in a good way, like I'm using my abilities. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. It's like these two things go together. As we care about ourselves more and appreciate ourselves more, we can let go of ourselves and not feel a need to identify with what we've done and what we're doing and where we're going and what people think of us and so on. So we kind of have this dance between being a somebody and figuring out how do we be the unique, beautiful somebody that we can be. How do we can we lean into doing that? Like just really noticing, what are my skills? And what am I inspired by? What am I really passionate about? What are my vulnerabilities and weaknesses? Places where it might be good for me not to try and go, that I'm not so good at. Can I work with that and accept my limitations and still proceed with whatever capacities I have? If I've got certain fears, can I kind of lean into them a little bit and not be too avoidant of them? Maybe I can lean into the things that scare me a little bit, because there is a kind of a wish, a vision of myself, of ourselves. And I think when we do that so that we can go to bed feeling satisfied at night, feeling like, I'm doing okay with my life, not other people thinking I'm doing okay with my life. That's a little neurotic. That's not what we're aiming for. Do I feel all right with what I'm doing with my life, given all the circumstances? Because of course sometimes As we know, people have got great capacity, but their circumstance doesn't allow them to fully realize it, maybe in the way that would be very beneficial. But even if we've got circumstances that constrict us, still within those circumstances, we can utilize ourselves to a greater extent maybe than we currently are. And then when we do that, we can, at the end of the day, feel satisfied. And when we feel satisfied, we don't need to shore up ourselves with ideas of who we are, and we don't need to shore ourselves up by trying to imagine what other people maybe think about us, or worry about what other people think about us. So sort of counterintuitively, the more we care for ourselves as a somebody, as a unique individual person, with our own, like, there's nobody else like any of us. Each of us truly is this really, like, it's amazing that we can all be so uniquely different, and yet there's so many of us, but it's true. So as we embrace that, we then also can kind of let go of it. We can embrace and let go. And it's like this core teaching that we have about two sides of one coin, form and emptiness, relative and ultimate. Someone was saying to me, that kind of doesn't sound, that sort of sounds dualistic, and aren't we trying to not be dualistic? Like, why are we talking about two truths all the time? Why does that happen in Zen particularly? So I was thinking about that conversation. And so if we think about this coin, one side is a somebody and the other side is nobody. It's just still one coin. The dualistic way of thinking about it is I'm a coin here and I'm a somebody, and you're a coin there and you're a nobody, or the other way round. Or I'm a coin but it's not as valuable as that coin. Or I'm a more valuable coin and you're just a lame-ass coin over there, littler coin. Or from the perspective of here and there, I'm here and you're there as a distinct fact. That's a dualistic way of thinking about it. But when we talk about the two truths, it's here and there and not two different places. Somebody and nobody is not two different things, it's two sides of one thing. It's two truths simultaneously. And our practice is to be able to hold those two truths simultaneously. And of course it isn't actually two truths, it's just the way we say it in language. It just is what it is. We're not a somebody and a nobody, it's just in our language we say it that way to help our minds be able to not fall into one side or the other side. Our minds tend to fall one side or the other side. Yeah. So I want to encourage us to really embrace our unique qualities and lean into them. Lean into them, celebrate ourselves, celebrate each other, accept our own shortcomings and accept other people's shortcomings. Doesn't mean we can't work on our shortcomings, but we also, to work on them skillfully, we have to accept them first. Acceptance is always the step that has to occur before skillfulness can really happen. If we meet something with resistance first, we're not going to be able to see it properly, and then we can't be skillful. So to accept ourselves just as we are, and then do our best, be disciplined for our own benefit, then we can actually open up to this idea that I'm nobody in particular. And that's, nobody is nobody in particular. The shorthand is nobody. The more full explanation is nobody in particular. That I am a result of all the causes and conditions from just 1 second ago, 1 minute ago, 1 day ago. And all my abilities are the result of gifts I've received. All my shortcomings are the result of gifts I've received, because not all gifts are nice. Some gifts are not so nice in terms of our experience of them. So I'm just a result of all the gifts I've received. And in that sense, I'm nobody. So it's really beautiful to really reflect on that we're just the result of gifts that we've received from our parents, from our culture, from our Sangha, from our biology. We can cultivate gratitude, and then this feeling of I'm not a separate self, then I'm kind of just part of this, this fabric. I'm just part of a fabric. And I'm also part of other people's sense of themselves. I'm part of them. I'm contributing to who they are. They are contributing to who I am, and I'm contributing to who they are. So this sense of self and other starts to blur, where there's no line. So being no one and going nowhere, the nice thing about this idea of going nowhere is, from one side of the coin, we want to follow our passions and our wishes and our vision for ourselves. Our vision might be, I want to wake up to the teachings and be at peace and at ease within myself in this life. I don't want to wait till the next life. I want to do it in this life. That could be one vision. The other vision might be, I want to be an expert in my field, or I want to be a soccer coach, or I want to be a good parent, or whatever it might be. Just whatever it might be. We can have that, and that can be wholesome if at the same time, we also know I don't need to go anywhere. My existence is enough. Just who I am right now is enough. What I'm doing right now is enough. Sitting in Zazen doing nothing is enough. So I don't need to go anywhere, because Buddha nature is who I am. I am a Buddha already. I might not always feel like it. I might not always act like it, but actually I am. And so is everybody else. It's very relaxing to be able to deeply get a sense of I'm okay as I am right now. Nothing to be, nowhere to go. And that's what we practice with our Zazen each day. We don't try to be anything in Zazen, and we don't try to go anywhere in Zazen. We're just sitting there, observing our breath. I think it takes a long time to really hold these two truths sort of naturally. At first we have to think about them. We have to think about this side and that side. Form and emptiness. Relative and ultimate. We have to sort of intentionally think about it. But after a while, it just starts to be how we are, and everything gets easier. And we just tip a little bit this way, tip a little bit that way. If we're starting to get too caught up in who we are as a somebody, we can just sort of relax a little bit and go, I'm fine, don't have to do anything or achieve anything. If we get a little too goal-oriented, just in a certain moment, or if we just really want someone to understand something and they don't seem to be, we can just loosen up and go, it's okay. We don't understand each other. it starts to get more integrated in us, and we just tilt whichever way is more appropriate easily without even trying. So I think that's all I wanted to say today, just a bit of a short talk day. Maybe the title of the talk could be like, Nobody Being Somebody. That's what we are. We're all nobody, but we're being somebody. And that's great. It's great. And that's what everyone else is. Everybody else is nobody being somebody. Yeah. Let's see if I can. Yeah. So would anyone like to comment or ask a question online or here in the temple, Zendo? Jamal.
Thank you for the talk. You mentioned about the going nowhere in practice and not trying to go somewhere. I've also heard, I guess through a lot of Zen books and teaching around an encouragement to have a strong determination or a real a kind of vigor and desire to achieve Kensho, like right here, right now.
Yeah.
I guess I'm interested in your thoughts on the balance between holding a strong determination but also doing so, I guess it is compatible with the idea of needing to go nowhere. And I guess for a little bit of personal context, I've personally never really had that kind of need to go be enlightened in this lifetime or anything else. I'm personally happy to wait a few lifetimes. But yet I still have been obviously drawn to the practice and to that idea of wanting to delve deeper and all that, and I guess trying to balance the two, and if one is actually, if the determination is actually necessary, or are there other paths?
Yes, very good question. Do we need to sort of be determined and make an effort, or can we sort of just relax? And I think different teachers emphasize things slightly differently, and maybe they do that partly because of their personality or because of the period of time they're in the location they're in. So Suzuki Roshi very much emphasized, like, go nowhere, do nothing. That was very much, you're already a Buddha, just don't worry about it. So that was his teaching. He would say that over and over in many, many ways. But at the same time, he was like, we sit at 5:45 every morning, please come. He sat every day. He had a very rigorous practice, but he didn't push that practice onto people, but he made it very available and gently, wanted you to turn up. He would gently, but in his own way, really want you to turn up to that zazen. But his words were always, you don't need to do anything. So there's that. And then you have the more sort of Rinzai style teachers, which are, life is short, why waste it? Do you want to be deluded for the whole of your life? You want to be unhappy and restless for the whole of your life? Do it now. And that's a valid teaching too. It's a valid teaching too. So I think each of us needs to know a little bit about our personalities. That kind of do it now, for some people is this does not work for me. And we have to listen to that if that doesn't work. I think I'm a little in between. I like both. I really like both. That works for me. Both work for me. And I think a lot of teachers do a little bit of both of those styles. So there's not one, This is an example of the two truths. One is just coming from the form side. You're in this life now. You have this name now. You've bumped into the Dharma now. Wake up now. Do it now. And the other side, oh yeah, you don't need to do anything. Don't worry about it. Just have a cup of tea. Don't worry about it. They're both totally spot on. They're just coming from the different sides. So I think for you, it's like, don't worry about it, but come to Zazen. That's my guess. Bill?
Thanks for the great talk, Lee. I wanted to kind of go on from that maybe and dig in a little bit more, because it sounded like the way that you perceived this teaching being nobody, going nowhere. You said that it sort of was a teaching that you were struggling to reconcile yourself with, or that it felt a bit wrong to you when you first engaged with it. And it sounds like your reaction wasn't to go around saying, oh, I should be a nobody, and I should be going nowhere. It was to actually almost do the opposite and, okay, well, if I think it's more right to be a somebody and to get somewhere, I'm going to work really hard at self-actualizing, I guess, and try really hard to get through the whole Kono curriculum and stuff like that. Is that right? And is that just sort of one way of integrating the teachings?
Yeah. I think it's really important that we listen closely to ourselves. And we can't listen closely to ourselves so well unless we're very quiet. So Zazen helps like that. And I think I knew this teaching was very wise, but I wasn't confident enough to step into this teaching because I was an insecure person, because I wasn't using my capacity. And part of me knew I wasn't, and so I was feeling like, just in a normal, healthy, psychological way, not really, happy with myself. I wasn't unhappy specifically. There was just clearly more, and history shows that I was right. I then went on and I did a master's degree and, did a bunch of things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. So part of me knew there was something not right within myself on a conventional level, on the form side. And then once that was sort of more sorted, or concurrently, then I didn't have to be scared of being nobody. Being nobody didn't feel scary anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't feel like a black abyss. Felt more like, oh, that would be relaxing to not be so fussed about myself. That would be relaxing. Yeah. Does that make sense? Does that sound?
Yes.
Does that sound right? Yeah. So listening. I'm very big on. We're all unique, and we have to listen. And there's not one path. There's really wise teachings, and they've been around for a long time, and we should respect them and listen to them. But we still have to integrate them in our particular way, whatever our particular way is. So that's how my particular way turned out. To go back to university, so I could become nobody. Yeah. I don't know your name.
Angus.
Angus. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Neti.
Neti, nice to meet you. Thank you for a wonderful morning practice. I really enjoy a lot of the themes through the talk, and one I wanted to perhaps draw out a little bit further or get your thoughts on was this idea of nobody being somebody. And part of what I took out of the discussion was the nobody and the somebody formations in an interplay between our circumstances. And I don't know, you didn't use the word choice, so I wonder where choice comes into that conversation around having that clear space to not react and make conscious choice or decision. And I was curious on your thoughts about the somebodies we do become, and to what degree choice or intention play a role in the nobodies and the somebodies we show up as.
This question about choice is a complicated one. Whether we truly have choice or a choice is an illusion, I think doesn't matter too much for us as practitioners. What the teachings encourage us to do is just to try and lean into decision making that it will be beneficial for us and others. In the truest way that we can imagine what that might be. Sometimes the choice is just sort of like I need to get more sleep. It could be I need to earn more money, but often it's not really those sorts of material things, but sometimes it is. And what will truly benefit me and benefit others. I kind of like two images that I have in my mind. Is like we're riding on a motorbike, and as we go around one bend, we have to tip a bit that way to navigate the bend. And then when we come to another bend, we have to tip this way to navigate the bend. And that's like the two truths. Sometimes we need to lead a little more towards form, and sometimes a little bit towards emptiness. Or the conventional way of seeing things and the ultimate, more full way of seeing things. So for example, whether to say somebody being nobody or nobody being somebody, it's kind of equal, but maybe from a Buddhist perspective, we would slightly emphasize the nobody more. So we're all nobody because we're indivisible and we appear as somebody, and we need to look after that appearance as a somebody. But sometimes we tilt this way and sometimes we tilt that way. And sometimes it's just a straight road and we're not tilting at all, but we're holding these, I'm a somebody and I'm a nobody. I don't know if I've really answered or said anything helpful.
You said many things helpful. I'm not sure if the question has an answer.
Right.
It's probably a question of further exploration to
Yeah.
understand how those concepts from another world came into that teaching or discussion presented this morning.
Yeah.
And what I've taken away from part of that is that if holding the two truths or the two sides of the coin and being the coin, there will be parts where it is a nobody becoming somebody or somebody becoming nobody. So taking choice out of the question probably makes it an easier way to digest the response in terms of we will follow or open depending on the point or what's presented to us through circumstance. So perhaps I need to ponder on the question.
Yeah, and one thing about choice actually that I think is, there's all a sort of philosophical debate about free will, but just on choice, one way to think about it I think that's very helpful is any choice that we make is because of the kindness of others that allows us. If we make a good choice, it's not because we're just amazing and we somehow made a really good choice because we're just so together or we're so brave. If we're brave or if we're skillful, it's because of all the kindnesses and all the gifts we receive from everybody else. I think that's a more accurate way of thinking about ourselves, because who is the one that's choosing? From a Buddhist perspective, in the end, the who that is choosing is everybody else but us, because we're made up of everything other than ourselves. Like, I didn't make Neti. That's crazy. I didn't make myself. Everybody else made me. So who is the one that chooses? Everybody but me. Yes, Jamal. Yeah.
One way I've heard of it conceptualized in a Buddhist context is not so much the idea that we have free will, but the idea we have free work.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too.
That karma or the situational context will always push us very strongly in one direction or another, and there's always a kind of a natural, resolution or a natural choice to make. And potentially we have a level of volition where we can choose to go against that, or we can choose to tip the other way, even though it's leaning heavily one way. But it's often a more forceful and active thing to stop going with the way things are leaning. And if we just let things go certain ways, they will kind of always naturally fall one way or the other, and there isn't a lot of choice in that.
Thank you. I don't know if people online are able to hear, no, but that's okay. You can just be there not hearing. But would anyone online like to say anything? Russ.
I thought it was very. Sorry.
Oh, it's because you've got two things open, Russ.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I was trying to hear by having a second one that I could put up to my ear. It didn't work though, so don't anybody else bother. I thought it was very helpful when you mentioned the practice or approach of kind of using an assessment or touching in with whether or not one is satisfied at the end of the day as a means by which to know whether one is appropriately using one's gifts in the world to a pretty substantial degree, or whether, as you discovered within yourself at one point in time, it seemed as though there was more that needed to be expressed that was not being expressed at that time under those circumstances. And I think it's particularly helpful, and I hadn't really quite put it into those words for myself before, for a person who has special needs or special limitations in particular, that may preclude, as you said, circumstances sometimes do, may preclude the ability to perhaps express all of one's gifts in the world in ways that are obvious to everyone. So I think under those circumstances in particular, it's probably very helpful to get quiet and listen deeply and feel deeply into oneself on occasion, to just check in with that. And the way you described it, as whether or not one feels satisfied at the end of the day, seemed like a very skillful way to look at that. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I think if you want to aim for something, aiming for satisfaction is far better than aiming for happiness. Aim for satisfaction and happiness will just be a byproduct. But aiming for happiness, it's tricky. Often doesn't work. But it is a really good feeling at the end of the day to just you don't even for more than a second or two, you can just go like, oh, yeah, good, time for bed. It's a good feeling. And instructive too, if it doesn't feel like that, then you can think, sometimes we might get to the end of the day and we can feel something's unresolved. Often it's an interpersonal thing, maybe feels unresolved. But it could be, a problem that we're dealing with in our work or something feels unresolved. And then we can just note that. Note, there's something not resolved. And maybe sometimes the best thing is resolve it now before bed, or it might be try not to think about it in the middle of the night, but I will attend to it tomorrow.
And if I could just say one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Your distinguishing between satisfaction and happiness, I think, was also a very useful way to frame things in a question in one's mind. And as my own personal experience with that, I learned while living in a Buddhist training temple that one does not have to be actually happy in order to be happy. That satisfaction that you mentioned actually is probably a more durable and achievable. Achieving is maybe not quite the right approach, but it's one we often use, more durable and achievable than the fleeting emotional elation state that we call happiness, which may or may not present itself under perfectly acceptable circumstances.
All right, I think we better finish up. So we're just going to do a little chant.